"Daddy, help me, she's going to hit me again." Can you imagine hearing that? That desperate, terrified cry from your own child? That's the sound that sliced through the pristine, quiet air of a sun-drenched Beverly Hills street, stopping Ethan Hayes in his tracks. At 45, the real estate mogul had just stepped out of a cab in front of his sprawling mansion, his heart buzzing with excitement. He'd just flown in from Tokyo, a full day early, eager to surprise his wife, Chloe, and their precious 5-year-old daughter, Lily. But in a horrifying twist of fate, the surprise was entirely his. And what he saw shattered his world in an instant. There, on the damp sidewalk, sat a tiny little girl, her bare feet tucked under her. She was methodically picking colorful pebbles from a puddle left by the morning sprinklers. Her little yellow dress, once bright and cheerful, was now a tattered, mud-stained rag. Tangled hair clung to her gaunt, pale face as she clutched a one-eyed brown teddy bear to her chest for dear life. It was his Lily, utterly and completely alone on one of the most exclusive streets in Los Angeles. "Lily," he breathed, his voice catching in his throat. The little girl's head snapped up, her wide eyes filled with fear. For a split second, it was as if she were looking at a stranger. Then her tiny lips began to tremble. The pebbles fell from her hand as she scrambled to her feet, stumbling towards him. "Daddy, Daddy, you came back." The moment Ethan swept her into his arms, a jolt of pure shock coursed through him. She was skeletal. Her little arms were nothing but skin and bone, and a foul odor of neglect and urine clung to her. The damp dress was cold against his own clothes, plastered to her frail, shivering body. "My love, what are you doing out here all by yourself? Where's Chloe?" Lily buried her face in his neck, her whole body shaking violently. "Aunt Chloe said you died on the plane," she whispered. "She said you were never ever coming back for me." Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. He looked up at his own home, a place of comfort and luxury, and saw that every curtain was drawn tight. But he could hear music, loud, throbbing music, and a cacophony of voices from within. "Lily, how long have you been out here?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. "Since yesterday morning, Daddy. Aunt Chloe told me to stay in the backyard, but I got scared when it got dark, so I came out front to wait for you." You slept on the street." The little girl nodded, still trembling. It was then he noticed her bare feet, purple with cold and covered in tiny cuts. And worse, strange dark bruises marred her thin arms, the ghost of a grip far too strong for a child. Carrying his daughter, who felt as light as a feather, he unlocked his own front door. The wall of sound that hit him was like a physical blow, loud laughter, pulsating electronic music, the clinking of glasses, and the thick, cloying smell of alcohol and men's cologne. His beautiful living room was unrecognizable. It was a disaster zone of dirty glasses, empty champagne bottles, overflowing ashtrays, and clothes strewn across the floor: a dress shirt, an expensive silk tie, an Italian designer jacket. "What the hell?" Ethan muttered. Lily flinched in his arms, pressing herself closer. "The uncles are playing with Aunt Chloe upstairs. They always make a lot of noise when they play." Ethan started up the grand staircase, his feet moving as if through concrete. With every step, the disturbing sounds from his own master bedroom grew louder. Men's voices, raucous laughter, and other noises that made his stomach churn with nausea. He paused at the door. It was slightly ajar. Through the crack, he saw a scene of such grotesque depravity he could barely process it. There was his wife, Chloe, 28 years old, nearly naked on the bed they shared. And with her were two much older men, sipping champagne and laughing as if this were the most normal thing in the world. It was a violation so profound, so obscene, Ethan felt the air leave his lungs. Lily's tiny whisper broke the spell. "Daddy, can I go to my little room now?" "I'm so cold." The blood boiling in his veins, Ethan backed away from the door. He carried Lily down the hall to her room, and the sight that greeted him there brought tears to his eyes. The bed hadn't been made in what looked like days. Dirty plates with mouldering food sat on her nightstand, and the smell was unbearable. "Lily, honey, when was the last time you had a bath? When did you last eat a real meal?" The little girl thought for a moment, counting on her tiny, frail fingers. "I think 5 days. Aunt Chloe said dirty kids can't come in the house when there are important visitors." His legs felt like they would give out from under him. 5 days. His daughter had been abandoned for 5 days, while his wife... He couldn't even finish the thought. And Mrs. Rosa, where is she? Lily's eyes instantly filled with tears. Mrs. Rosa left. She was crying. She and Aunt Chloe had a really big fight. Aunt Chloe yelled mean things at her and said if she told you any secrets, something really bad would happen to me. What kind of secrets? Lily glanced fearfully toward the door, as if Chloe might materialize at any moment. About the uncles who come to play. Mrs. Rosa didn't like it when they came. She would try to bring me inside, but Aunt Chloe would get so mad and tell me to stay outside until they were gone. Ethan knelt down, trying to keep the volcanic rage from his voice. How many uncles usually come? Sometimes 1, sometimes 2, sometimes more, she whispered. They come in big, fancy cars. Aunt Chloe gets so happy when they arrive. She puts on pretty dresses and lots of perfume. And where exactly did you have to stay? In the backyard, Daddy. I had to be quiet. No crying, no noise. If I cried, Aunt Chloe said you would get very mad at me and never let me come stay with you again. The memory hit him like a freight train. Lily didn't live with him full time. Since his divorce from her mother 2 years ago, she only spent a few days a week at his house. And on every single one of those days, it seemed, she had been systematically tormented by the woman he had married. Honey, did this happen every time you came to stay with me? Yes, Daddy. Whenever you went on a trip, the uncles would come. Aunt Chloe said it was my fault, that if I didn't exist, she could have her friends over in peace. The laughter from the bedroom intensified, followed by Chloe's voice, a shrill, exaggerated cry of pleasure that was so clearly for show. It was a performance, a sickening spectacle. Lily covered her ears with her small hands. They always make that noise, Daddy. I get scared they're hurting Aunt Chloe, but afterwards she's always really happy and counts her money. Money? Yes. The uncles always give her money before they leave, lots and lots of money. She keeps it in a box under the bed. In that moment, Ethan knew this was so much worse than an affair. Chloe was running a brothel from his home, using his absence as cover and sacrificing his daughter's innocence in the process. The sound of voices approaching sent a jolt of adrenaline through him. He scooped Lily up and hurried down to the kitchen. He yanked open the refrigerator, desperate to find something for her to eat, but found only imported beer and spoiled leftovers. Lily, what have you been eating these past few days? Sometimes the neighbor, Mrs. Gable, leaves a sandwich by the gate when she sees me in the yard, or I drink water from the hose. His hands shaking with fury, he found some crackers in the pantry and warmed up a glass of milk. Lily drank it frantically, like someone who had been deprived of water for days. Then footsteps descended the stairs. Male voices drew closer. Ethan instinctively positioned himself in front of Lily, shielding her. 2 men walked into the kitchen. One was in his 50s, with a prominent gut, wearing a bathrobe Ethan recognized as his own. The other was younger, muscular, and shirtless. When they saw Ethan, they froze. "Whoa, sorry, man," the older one said, looking genuinely embarrassed. "Chloe didn't say she had a husband." "What do you mean she didn't say?" Ethan asked, fighting to keep his voice even, to not terrify his daughter any further. "Look, dude, we pay to be here. She never said a word about being married. She said the house was hers. The younger man added, "Yeah, man, she charges a fortune specifically because she's hosting in a millionaire's mansion. It ups the status, you know?" The floor seemed to drop out from under him. You pay her?" "Of course, bro. $1,500 each for the afternoon. It's steep, but worth it." "This house is insane." Just then, Chloe appeared in the doorway, wearing nothing but a see-through nightgown, her hair a mess. The color drained from her face when she saw Ethan. "Ethan, what a surprise! You weren't supposed to be back today." The two men, sensing the imminent explosion, scrambled to get dressed. "Chloe, you didn't tell us you were married." "This is a setup," the older one complained. "Relax, guys, it's just a misunderstanding," Chloe said, trying desperately to control the narrative. "A misunderstanding?" Ethan's voice was ice. It made her flinch. "You're charging strangers to have sex in my home." "Ethan, let me explain. And my daughter. And where was my little girl while all of this was happening?" Lily peeked out from behind his legs, still clutching her milk. "Hi, Aunt Chloe. Daddy's back. You said he died, but he came back." Chloe shot Lily a look of pure venom. "Lily, go to your room. The adults are talking." "No," Ethan said, pulling his daughter closer. "She stays with me." "You two," he snarled at the men, "get out of my house, now." They didn't need to be told twice. Muttering apologies and complaints, they vanished. The silence that fell in the kitchen was heavy, suffocating. "Ethan, I can explain everything," Chloe began, taking a step towards him. "You can start by explaining how long you've been running a whorehouse from my home. It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" Lily tugged on his pants. "Daddy, Aunt Chloe always told me I couldn't tell you about the uncles. She said if I told, you would get really mad and never let me come here again." Ethan knelt down to his daughter's level. "Lily, Daddy will never, ever be mad at you. You can always tell me everything. Aunt Chloe said the uncles liked playing in a pretty house like ours," she continued, "and that if I bothered them, they would leave and she would be very, very sad." "What else did she tell you?" "That I was a bad kid because you and Mommy split up because of me, and that if I wasn't quiet, you would give me away to a family that's better at taking care of children." Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. His little girl had been psychologically tortured to keep her silent about the vile crimes happening under her own roof. Chloe tried one last desperate plea. "Ethan, you're never here. You're always traveling, always working. I get lonely. I need company. Company that pays $1,500 a pop. I needed extra money." "Extra money? I give you everything you could ever want." "It's not just about the money." "Then what is it about?" Chloe hesitated. Then her face hardened into a mask of chilling indifference. "It's about freedom, about doing what I want with my life. I'm not a babysitter for someone else's child." Lily began to cry softly. Ethan scooped her into his arms, his eyes burning with a hatred Chloe had never seen before. "Someone else's child. She is my daughter." "So what? I didn't ask for her to exist. I married you, not her." Just then, the landline on the kitchen wall rang. Ethan answered it, his glare never leaving Chloe. "Mr. Hayes?" It was a familiar, warm voice. "This is Mrs. Rosa. The neighbors told me you were back. I need to speak with you. It's urgent. It's about Lily." Ethan glanced at Chloe, who had gone impossibly paler. "Mrs. Rosa, where are you?" "I'm at my sister's place in Sunridge Heights. Mr. Hayes, I have proof of everything that's been happening in that house. Everything they've done to your daughter." Chloe lunged for the phone, but Ethan blocked her. "What kind of proof, Mrs. Rosa?" "Photos, sir. Recordings. I documented everything before she threw me out. I knew one day you would need to know the truth." For the first time since he'd arrived home, Ethan smiled, a cold, dangerous smile. The war was just beginning. Ethan carried Lily to his home office, a space far removed from the contaminated bedroom he had once shared with Chloe. The little girl was emotionally drained, but her big eyes darted around nervously, as if expecting a monster to leap from the shadows. "Daddy, is Aunt Chloe going to be mad if I sleep in your office?" "No, sweetie. You're going to sleep right here, and no one is ever going to bother you again." He made a makeshift bed for her on the plush leather sofa, draping his own jacket over her like a blanket. She hugged her one-eyed bear tightly and whispered, "Daddy, you promise you won't let Aunt Chloe lock me outside again?" "I promise, Lily. Daddy's going to fix everything." As she drifted off to sleep, he studied her thin face, the dark circles under her eyes, her chapped lips. His daughter had been systematically abused and traumatized, and he had been completely oblivious. The guilt was a physical weight in his chest, a crushing stone. He went downstairs to find Chloe, frantically trying to erase the evidence of the party, a desperate attempt to restore a semblance of normalcy. She had changed into a conservative dress and tied her hair back, trying to play the part of the innocent, wronged wife. "Ethan, we need to talk about this calmly. You walked in at a bad moment and jumped to conclusions." "Jumped to conclusions?" He let out a harsh, humorless laugh. "Chloe, I found 2 paying customers in my bed. What other conclusion is there? Look, I can explain it all, but you have to understand how lonely I get when you're away." "Lonely enough to charge $1,500 an hour." Chloe went pale. "How did you know the price?" "Your clients were quite forthcoming, Chloe. They told me themselves they pay a premium to have sex in a millionaire's house." She tried a different tactic, her eyes filling with crocodile tears as she moved closer. "Ethan, I know I messed up, but I was desperate. I was needy. You're never here. You never pay attention to me. And my daughter. Where was she while you were entertaining your clients?" Lily was playing in the backyard. Kids love the fresh air. "Playing in the backyard during thunderstorms? Without food? Without water?" Chloe faltered. How did he know so many details? "You're exaggerating. Lily is dramatic. She's always making up stories for attention." Ethan picked up the kitchen phone and dialed. "Mrs. Rosa, it's Ethan Hayes. I need to speak with you urgently." Chloe tried to grab the phone from him. "Ethan, you don't need to involve other people. This is our problem." "Our problem?" he shot back. "You involved my 5-year-old daughter, Chloe. This stopped being ours the second you did that." Mrs. Rosa's voice on the other end was thick with emotion. "Mr. Hayes, thank God you're back. I've been praying every single day that nothing terrible would happen to that little girl. Mrs. Rosa, can you come over? I need to talk to you right away." "Of course, sir. In fact, I have a few important things I need to show you." Chloe was visibly agitated. "What things?" Mrs. Rosa continued. "Mr. Hayes, before I come over, can I ask, is Lily okay? Has she eaten?" "Why do you ask?" "Because when I left 3 weeks ago, she was so thin, and Mrs. Hayes had forbidden me from giving her food without permission." The blood in Ethan's veins turned to ice. "Forbidden? Why?" She said the child was spoiled and needed to learn self-control, that a spoiled brat is too much work. Chloe gesticulated wildly for him to hang up. "She's lying. Rosa has always been a problem." But Mrs. Rosa's voice was firm. "Mr. Hayes, she may be listening, but I have to tell you the truth. I documented everything that happened in that house." "Documented how?" "Photos, recordings, notes. I knew that one day you would need to see the truth for yourself." Ethan looked at Chloe, who was now as white as a sheet. "Mrs. Rosa, can you come now?" "I'm on my way, sir. I'm just over in Sunridge Heights. I'll be there in 20 minutes. After hanging up, he fixed his gaze on Chloe. "What did you do to Mrs. Rosa?" "I didn't do anything. She quit." "Liar." From the sound of her voice, she didn't just quit. Chloe tried another angle. "Ethan, Rosa has always been jealous of me. From day one, she treated me like an intruder in your home. She's worked here for 2 years, since my divorce. She's known Lily since she was a baby." "Exactly. She thinks she has more of a say in your daughter's life than I do." "She does," Ethan snapped. "At least she doesn't let my daughter starve in the rain." Chloe finally exploded. "Lily did not starve. She's exaggerating. She's always been a drama queen. Dramatic Chloe. She's 5 years old and she weighs less than a child of 3. He went back upstairs to check on Lily and found her awake, sitting on the sofa, clutching her bear. She had heard the shouting. "Daddy, is Aunt Chloe mad at me again?" "No, sweetie, she's not mad at you. Daddy's mad at her." "Why?" Ethan knelt in front of her. "Lily, can you tell me exactly what it was like when I was away? What happened?" The little girl glanced nervously at the door. "Can Aunt Chloe hear?" "It doesn't matter. You can tell Daddy anything." Lily took a deep breath. "When you would leave, Aunt Chloe got really happy. She would sing and get all dressed up and make the house smell pretty. And then the uncles would come in their nice cars. She'd tell me to go to the backyard and not come back until they were gone." "Even when it was raining?" "Even when it was raining, Daddy. One time it rained so hard, and I just stood under the big oak tree. I got all wet and cold." Ethan felt his heart crack. "And Mrs. Rosa, did she help you?" "Mrs. Rosa would try to bring me inside when Aunt Chloe wasn't looking. She gave me food and a blanket when it was cold." "Why did she have to hide?" "Because Aunt Chloe got really, really mad when she helped me. She said Mrs. Rosa was spoiling me." "What else happened?" Lily hesitated, her eyes again darting to the door. "The uncles, they made strange noises upstairs. They would yell and Aunt Chloe would yell too. I thought they were hurting her, but then she would be so happy afterwards." "How did you know she was happy?" "Because I'd see her in the kitchen counting money after they left. Lots of money. She kept it in a box." He swallowed hard. His daughter had witnessed the financial transactions of prostitution. "Lily, did Aunt Chloe ever say anything about you to the uncles?" "Sometimes. If they asked whose doll was in the yard, she'd say it was a neighbor girl who came over to play." "A neighbor?" "Yeah. She said I didn't live here, that I was just some girl from down the street who came to play sometimes." The cruelty of the lie was staggering. She hadn't just hidden Lily, she had completely dehumanized her. "And when Mrs. Rosa left, what was that like?" Lily started to sob. "They had a big ugly fight, Daddy. Aunt Chloe screamed horrible things at her and said if she told you her secrets, something bad would happen to me." "What kind of bad thing?" "I don't know, Daddy. But Mrs. Rosa cried so much and she said she was going to tell you everything. That just made Aunt Chloe even madder." The doorbell rang. It was Mrs. Rosa. Ethan, with Lily still in his arms, opened the door to the woman who had cared for his daughter for 2 years. She carried a large tote bag, her eyes red from crying. "Oh, Mr. Hayes, Lily, my sweet girl, look how thin you are. Oh my God." Mrs. Rosa took the child from Ethan's arms and held her in a warm, loving embrace. Lily clung to her as if she were a life raft. "Mrs. Rosa, I missed you so much. Aunt Chloe said you were never coming back." "I'm back now, my love. And now I'm going to tell your daddy everything." Chloe appeared in the living room, her arms crossed defensively. "Rosa, you don't work here anymore. You have no reason to be in my house." "Your house?" Mrs. Rosa laughed, a bitter, painful sound. "Chloe, this house belongs to Mr. Hayes, and I have every right to be here if he invites me." Ethan led them to the living room. "Mrs. Rosa, tell me everything." The housekeeper opened her bag and took out a worn notebook, an old cell phone, and a stack of photographs. "Mr. Hayes, I started getting suspicious when you began traveling more." "Mrs. Hayes?" "She changed completely." "Changed how?" "She would become euphoric whenever she knew you were leaving. She started getting strange phone calls, whispering, always telling Lily to go away." Chloe interjected, "That's normal. I'm entitled to my privacy." Mrs. Rosa ignored her. "Then the men started showing up, Always different men, always expensive cars, and always the same routine. Lily was banished to the backyard. You documented this? Yes, sir. At first, I just wrote it down in this notebook. Dates, times, descriptions of the men and their cars. She handed him the notebook. Page after page was filled with meticulous, heartbreaking detail. March 15th, overweight man, black BMW. Arrived 2 p.m., left 5:30 p.m. Lily in the yard from 2 until 6, no food. Ethan flipped through the pages. There were hundreds of similar entries. And the photos. Mrs. Rosa laid them on the coffee table. Photos she'd taken discreetly from the kitchen window. Lily, huddled under a tree during a downpour. Lily, drinking water from the garden hose. Lily, asleep on the cold patio stones, clutching her bear. My God! Ethan could barely look. There's more, sir. When I started to protest, Mrs. Hayes became aggressive. Aggressive how? She forbade me from giving Lily food without her explicit permission. She said the girl was spoiled and needed to learn discipline. And you obeyed her? No, sir. I kept taking care of her in secret. I'd sneak her sandwiches and water, a blanket when it got cold. Chloe erupted. You were undermining my authority. I am her stepmother. Authority? Mrs. Rosa whirled on her, her eyes blazing. What authority do you have to let a child starve? Ethan cut in. Mrs. Rosa, the recordings. The housekeeper picked up the old phone. When she started making threats, I started recording our conversations. She pressed play. Chloe's voice filled the room, sharp and cruel. Rosa, if you keep coddling that brat, I'll fire you and I'll tell everyone you were stealing. Another recording. That girl cannot interfere with my work. If she makes a sound while I have clients, I swear to God I will throw her out of this house for good. Ethan felt sick. Chloe's work. Is there more? Much more, sir, including her talking about her prices. Chloe's voice again, clinical and detached. $500 for a simple session, $3,000 for special requests, and $5,000 if they want to film a video in my millionaire husband's bed. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. His marriage bed, his private sanctuary, had been turned into a commodity. And then there's this one, sir, Mrs. Rosa said, her voice trembling. This is when I knew I had to tell you. A new recording began. It was Chloe on the phone with someone else. The brat is becoming an inconvenience. She's getting older. She's starting to understand things. I'm going to have to find a permanent solution. An unknown woman's voice replied, Do what I did with my stepson. Claim she's mentally unstable and have her committed to a facility. Then you'll be free. Chloe's voice came back, thoughtful. That's a good idea. A child in an institution can't bother anyone. The silence in the room was deafening. Ethan looked at Lily, who was listening to it all, not understanding the words but sensing the tension. You were going to have my daughter committed? He asked, his voice shaking with rage. Chloe stammered. That was taken out of context. What context, Chloe? Ethan, you have to understand, Lily was getting in the way. In the way of what? Your work? Your life? She's always crying, always so clingy. He took a deep breath, trying to control himself in front of his child. Mrs. Rosa, how exactly were you fired? I wasn't fired, sir. I was threatened. Threatened how? She told me that if I said a word to you, she would invent a story that I was abusing Lily. That's a lie, Chloe shrieked. Mrs. Rosa calmly played another recording, Chloe's voice cold as steel. Rosa, you open your mouth and I will tell my husband and the police that you were touching that girl inappropriately. Who do you think they'll believe? Me or the hired help? Ethan shot to his feet, a roar of fury building in his chest. Lily flinched. You threatened to accuse Mrs. Rosa of child molestation? Ethan, I was desperate. Desperate to do what? To keep your brothel running? Lily started to cry from the shouting. Mrs. Rosa comforted her. "Shh, my sweet girl. Daddy's not mad at you." Ethan knelt before his daughter. "I'm sorry, sweetie. Daddy didn't mean to yell." "It's not your fault, Daddy," Lily whispered. "Now that Mrs. Rosa is back, will she take care of me again?" "Yes, she will, sweetheart. Mrs. Rosa is never leaving again." Chloe tried one last pathetic gamble. "Ethan, we can handle this as a family. We don't need outsiders. I promise I'll change. I'll stop everything." "Stop everything, Chloe? No, you're not going to stop. You're going to tell me everything, down to the last disgusting detail. Tell you what, and to all of you watching, let me ask you, where are you tuning in from? I need to know if this story is reaching every corner of the country, because what comes next is absolutely devastating. "I want to know who your clients are," Ethan snarled. "I want to know how this whole scheme works, and I want to know who else is involved." Chloe knew it was over. The evidence was irrefutable, the witness was unshakable, and Ethan's eyes held the promise of utter destruction. "And if I don't tell you? Then I take all of this to the police and the press, today. And you can explain to your prim and proper family from Omaha how their darling daughter became a high-class prostitute." The color drained from her face. Her conservative family had no idea about her double life. "Okay," she whispered, "I'll talk. But you have to promise you won't completely destroy me." Ethan's smile was pure ice. "Chloe, you destroyed my daughter's innocence. You traumatized her to protect your filthy business. You planned to lock her away in an institution to get your freedom. You tell me, do you really think you deserve mercy?" Chloe swallowed hard, finally understanding that the war had just begun, and she had already lost everything. Ethan settled Lily into a guest room where Mrs. Rosa had already made a soft bed with clean sheets. The little girl was emotionally spent, but her eyes were still wide with a lingering fear. "Daddy, Aunt Chloe won't yell at me anymore, right?" "No, sweetie, no one will ever yell at you again." He tucked the blankets around her and kissed her forehead. She grabbed his hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "Daddy, promise you won't go on any more trips and leave me alone." "I promise, my love. Daddy is staying right here to take care of you. And Mrs. Rosa is staying too. Yes, Mrs. Rosa is never leaving again." For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Lily smiled before closing her eyes, her one-eyed bear held tight. Ethan waited until she was sound asleep before returning to the living room. Chloe sat on the sofa, her arms crossed, a pathetic fortress of defiance. "Ethan, before we go any further, we need to set some ground rules for this conversation." "Rules?" He laughed, a sound devoid of any humor. "Chloe, the only person setting rules here is me. I'm not saying anything without a guarantee that you won't make a public scene." "A guarantee? You want a guarantee after you turned my home into a brothel and traumatized my daughter?" She switched tactics, her voice becoming soft and seductive. "Ethan, we can handle this like civilized adults. There's no need for all this aggression." He ignored her completely, discreetly turning on his phone's voice recorder. "Let's start at the beginning. When exactly did this business of yours start in my house? Ethan, I don't like this accusatory tone." "When did it start, Chloe?" he roared. She jumped. 2 weeks after we were married, you went to Chicago for that residential tower project. And how did it start? Tell me everything." She hesitated, clearly calculating how much she could get away with omitting. I met a man at a restaurant." "What man?" "A developer. He recognized me." "Recognized you? How?" A long silence stretched between them. Ethan knew he was on the verge of another darker truth. "Recognized you? How, Chloe?" He'd been a client of mine before." "A client? So you were already a prostitute before you married me?" "I was a high-end escort," she corrected, as if the distinction mattered. It's different. Different how? Escorts don't work the streets. We cater to businessmen, politicians, A-list men. The ground beneath Ethan's feet felt like it was crumbling. How long have you been an escort? Since I was 19. 19? Chloe, you're 28. That's 9 years of selling your body. 9 years of honest work, supporting my family, she snapped. Work? Ethan stood up, pacing like a caged animal. And when were you planning on telling me about this? Never. It was none of your business. My past is mine. Not my business, Chloe? I married you thinking you were what? A virgin, a saint. I was an honest woman. Honest according to your twisted chauvinistic standards, she spat back. I was always honest in my work. He sat back down, the sheer scale of her deception threatening to suffocate him. Keep talking. This developer recognized you and he said he missed me, that he'd pay anything to have me back. And you accepted? Not right away. I thought about it for a few days. And what convinced you? The money. He offered $3,000 for one afternoon. $3,000 to have sex in my house. Ethan, you're never home. You're always working, always traveling. I'm all alone in this giant mansion. So you decided to turn it into a brothel. I decided to make my loneliness profitable. He shook his head, stunned by her cold cynicism. And my daughter? Where was Lily during your appointments? Lily wasn't here full time. She only came a few days a week. And on the days she was here. Chloe looked away. I made arrangements. What kind of arrangements? Sometimes I sent her to a neighbor's house. Sometimes she was left to play in the backyard, even in the rain, even when it was freezing. Ethan, you're being dramatic. Dramatic! A small noise from the doorway cut him off. Lily stood there, rubbing her eyes. Daddy, I can't sleep. You're yelling again. Ethan knelt and pulled her into his arms. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Come here. You can sit with Daddy. He settled her on his lap, her small presence a shield against the storm of his own rage. Chloe, keep talking. In front of Lily. She has a right to know the truth about what happened to her. Chloe recoiled. Ethan, it's not appropriate to discuss this in front of a child. And it was appropriate to lock this child in the yard while you sold your body in my bed? Lily looked from her father to her stepmother, her brow furrowed in confusion. Daddy, what does sell your body mean? Ethan took a deep breath. Sweetheart, it means Aunt Chloe was doing very bad things with strange men in our house. What kind of bad things? Things that hurt you. That's why she made you stay outside. Lily turned her innocent gaze on Chloe. Aunt Chloe, why did you do things that hurt me? Chloe couldn't answer, unable to meet the child's eyes. Ethan pressed on. How many men came here, Chloe? Ethan, you don't need the details. How many? It varied. Sometimes one a day, sometimes 2 or 3. Lily stirred on his lap. It's true, Daddy. Lots of different uncles came in fancy cars. And what would you do when they arrived, sweetie? Aunt Chloe would tell me to go to the backyard and be quiet. If I made noise or cried, she got very, very mad. Ethan's gaze was pure venom. And what happened if she didn't obey? Chloe remained silent. Answer me. I would punish her. What kind of punishment? She wouldn't get to eat until she learned her lesson. Lily's small voice confirmed the horror. It's true, Daddy. When I cried, Aunt Chloe wouldn't give me any food. She said disobedient children go hungry. Tears streamed down Ethan's face. And Mrs. Rosa, how did she find out? Rosa started asking questions when she noticed all the different cars. And what did you tell her? That they were friends of mine, just normal social calls. And she believed you? At first, but then she got suspicious. Why? because the men always left looking relaxed, and I was always counting cash afterwards. Lily added, Mrs. Rosa would ask me why I was in the backyard when we had visitors. I told her Aunt Chloe made me. And what did Mrs. Rosa do? She would sneak me food and a blanket, but she always had to hide from Aunt Chloe. Ethan turned back to Chloe. And when you found out Mrs. Rosa was helping Lily? I was furious. I told her to stop interfering with the girl's upbringing. Upbringing? You call letting a child starve in the cold an upbringing? I was teaching her to be independent. Independent? She's 5 years old. Lily tugged on her father's shirt. Daddy, after Mrs. Rosa left, it got much worse. Worse how, sweetie? Aunt Chloe was madder at me all the time. She said it was my fault Mrs. Rosa was gone. Your fault? Ethan looked at Chloe. How was it her fault? The girl was crying constantly after Rosa left, making a scene. My client started to complain about the noise. So you did what? I told Lily that if she kept crying, you would never come back for her. You threatened my daughter? I was educating her, Lily confirmed, her voice trembling. Aunt Chloe said you died on the plane, that you were never coming back because I was a very bad girl. Ethan hugged her tighter. And you believed her? Yes, Daddy. That's why I was waiting on the street. I thought if I waited long enough, maybe you would come back. He couldn't stop his own tears now. My sweet girl, Daddy will never, ever abandon you. Never. Chloe tried to justify herself. Ethan, you have to understand the stress I was under. Juggling all of that wasn't easy. Juggling what? Prostitution and childcare. It was my job, my source of income. Your income? Chloe, I give you everything you need. You give me what you think I need. I wanted my own financial independence. Financial independence by running a brothel out of your husband's house. Lily looked up at her father. Daddy, what's prostitution? Ethan paused, choosing his words carefully. It's when someone does private things with strangers for money. Is that what Aunt Chloe did? Yes, sweetie. Is that why she didn't want you to see? Yes. Lily then turned to Chloe, her innocent question more cutting than any accusation. Aunt Chloe, why didn't you just get a normal job like Mrs. Rosa? The question left Chloe utterly speechless. Ethan continued his interrogation. How many clients did you have? About 20 regulars. Names. Ethan, if I give you their names, I could get in trouble. If you don't, you will have trouble with me. She sighed in defeat. Ricardo Tavares from the construction firm, Dr. Franklin Pierce, the plastic surgeon, Councilman Mark Adler. Ethan knew them all. They moved in his social and professional circles. Continue. Retired police captain Anthony Silva, Judge Edmund Cole, the hotel magnate Grant Mitchell, a judge, a police captain. They paid extra for the discretion. Lily asked, Daddy, are those men your friends? Some of them are, sweetie. Did they know I was in the backyard? Ethan looked at Chloe. Did they know Lily existed? No, I always told them I didn't have any children. You denied my daughter's existence. It was just easier that way. Lily looked confused. Why did Aunt Chloe say I didn't exist? Because she was ashamed of you, sweetie. Ashamed to be your stepmother. I was not ashamed, Chloe screamed. I was being practical. Clients don't want to hear about kids. So you erased my daughter from your life. Temporarily. Ethan stood up, holding Lily securely in his arms. Chloe, you are going to give me the contact information for every single one of those men. What for? So I can tell them who they were really dealing with. Ethan, you can't do that. I can and I will. They have a right to know they were having sex in the house of a married man while his child was being systematically tortured in the backyard. Chloe's face was a mask of terror. If you do that, they will destroy me. Good, he said, his voice deadly calm. That is exactly what you deserve. Lily whispered in his ear. "Daddy, is Aunt Chloe leaving now?" "Yes, she is, sweetie. First thing tomorrow morning. And she's never coming back? Never again." Chloe finally understood that she had lost all control. "Ethan, just give me a chance to explain." "Explain what? That you destroyed my daughter's innocence for dirty money?" "It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that." He looked at her with pure, unadulterated contempt. "Chloe, tomorrow morning, you will walk out of this house. And if you ever try to come near Lily again, I will end you. And where am I supposed to go?" "To hell, preferably." Lily squeezed his arm. "Daddy, can I play in the living room now? Or do I still have to stay in the backyard?" "Sweetheart," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "from now on, you can play anywhere you want. This is your house too." Chloe looked around the magnificent mansion, the symbol of the luxurious life she had just lost. But Ethan wasn't finished with her. Not by a long shot. The worst was yet to come. Ethan spent the entire night meticulously plotting his revenge. With Lily sleeping peacefully on the office sofa beside him, he orchestrated a campaign of destruction as systematic as the one Chloe had waged against his daughter. He compiled the client list, found their home addresses, and calculated the perfect times to strike for maximum emotional and social devastation. At 6 a.m., he woke Mrs. Rosa. "I need you to look after Lily today. I have some important visits to make." "What kind of visits, Mr. Hayes?" "I'm going to introduce Chloe to the families of the men she serviced." A grim smile of satisfaction spread across Mrs. Rosa's face. It's about time that woman paid for what she did. At 7 a.m., Ethan woke Chloe. "Get up, today is your society debut." "What debut?" she asked, her voice thick with sleep. "You are going to personally tell each and every one of your clients' wives what you were doing with their husbands." Chloe shot up in bed, her eyes wide with panic. "Ethan, you're insane. I can't just show up at their houses." "Oh, you can, and you will. Or I'll go by myself and tell them an even worse version of the story." While Chloe got dressed with trembling hands, Ethan made a special breakfast for Lily. The change in the little girl was already remarkable. She was more relaxed, even smiling for the first time in months. The simple, constant presence of her father was beginning to heal her. "Daddy, can I eat breakfast at the big table today?" she asked, referring to the formal dining table from which she had always been banned. "Not only can you, my princess, you must. From now on, you are the queen of this house." Mrs. Rosa prepared a feast fit for royalty. Golden pancakes, fresh fruit cut into fun shapes, fresh squeezed orange juice. Lily ate with a hunger that was about more than just food. She was reclaiming her childhood. "Mrs. Rosa, can I have as many pancakes as I want?" "As many as you want, my sweet girl. You will never go hungry again." Chloe came downstairs dressed to the nines in an expensive dress and jewelry, a desperate attempt to cling to her facade of respectability before her final public fall from grace. "Ethan, I still think we can resolve this in a more civilized manner." "Civilized?" he scoffed. "Chloe, today you're going to learn the true meaning of civilization." In the car, he laid out the rules like a general before battle. "You will tell each family every sordid detail, times, prices, frequency, everything." I won't be able to look those women in the eye. You should have thought of that before you decided to destroy their lives." The first stop was strategic, the Beverly Hills mansion of Councilman Mark Adler, a man famous for his public speeches on family values. Ethan rang the bell at 9 a.m. sharp, knowing the whole family would be home. An elegant woman in her 40s, Helen Adler, answered, flanked by her 2 teenage children. "Good morning," she said. "May I help you?" "Mrs. Adler, my name is Ethan Hayes. I need to speak with your entire family about your husband." "About Mark? He's not here, but you can talk to me." "It's better if your children are here as well." They have a right to know what kind of man their father truly is. Clearly concerned, Helen ushered them inside, where her son, 16-year-old Peter, and daughter, 14-year-old Maria, were waiting. "What is this about?" Ethan looked at Chloe. "Tell them." Chloe trembled. I don't know how to start." "Start by explaining your professional relationship with the father of these children." Helen's brow furrowed. "Professional relationship?" Chloe swallowed hard. I provided intimate services for your husband." "Intimate services?" "Sexual services. He paid me to sleep with me." The silence in the room was absolute. Peter, the son, finally broke it. "Are you saying our dad paid for prostitutes?" "I'm saying your father was a client of this prostitute, yes." Maria began to cry. "Mom, that's a lie, right?" Helen stared at Chloe, her expression a mixture of horror and fury. "For how long?" 8 months. Every Thursday." "Every Thursday," Helen repeated numbly. "He told me he had a late meeting at City Hall." "There was no meeting. He was at my house." Peter exploded. "How much did he pay you?" $1,500 per meeting. Maria, a math whiz, did the calculation instantly. That's almost $50,000. That was our college money." Helen rose to her feet, shaking with rage. "Is there anything else?" "Yes," Ethan cut in. "She did all of this while my 5-year-old daughter was forced to stay locked in the backyard." Helen looked at Chloe with pure disgust. "You traumatized a child for dirty money." I didn't want to." "But you needed the work," Peter shouted. "That's not work, that's filth." Helen picked up the phone. "Get out of my house before I call the police. And when Mark gets home, he'll find his suitcases on the curb." Outside, Chloe collapsed against the car. "Ethan, please, I can't do this 7 more times." "Yes, you can." Next stop, Dr. Pierce's house. The second visit was even more brutal. The plastic surgeon's home was a modern palace. His wife, Eleanor Pierce, a woman in her 50s whose face bore the tight, polished look of her husband's work, greeted them with their 20-year-old daughter, Beatrice, a pre-med student. "Good morning. My husband is at the hospital, but can I help you?" "You can," Ethan said grimly. "This woman has been systematically sleeping with your husband." Eleanor nearly fainted. Chloe, now an emotional wreck, confessed in a broken voice. "Mrs. Pierce, I had an intimate relationship with your husband." "What kind of relationship?" "He paid me to sleep with him at my house." Beatrice screamed, "My father paid for prostitutes, the same man who lectures me about morals and dignity." "How often?" Eleanor asked, her voice dangerously calm. "Twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, for the last 10 months. Beatrice's mind raced. That's over 80 times. How much did he pay?" $2,000 per session. Eleanor staggered back against a wall. $160,000. Oh my God. $160,000 of our family's money. Beatrice burst into tears. "Mum, remember when he said he couldn't afford to pay for my study abroad program because money was tight? He was spending my tuition on prostitutes." Eleanor turned to Chloe, her eyes murderous. "You destroyed my family for money. I'm so sorry." "Sorry?" Eleanor grabbed an expensive crystal vase and hurled it against the wall, where it shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. 20 years of marriage gone. "And you're sorry?" Beatrice shrieked. "Get out of here before I do something I regret." The tour of destruction continued, each stop a new level of humiliation. They crashed the birthday party of hotel magnate Grant Mitchell's wife, where Chloe confessed in front of 40 guests. They interrupted the Sunday family luncheon of Judge Edmund Cole, where his devout 70-year-old wife of 45 years learned of his betrayal in front of her children and grandchildren. The final devastating act was a meeting Ethan arranged at a neutral location, a hotel conference room. He had invited all the wronged wives. When the 8 women came face to face with the source of their misery, the room erupted. They shouted over one another, comparing notes on their husbands' betrayals. "My husband spent $50,000 on her," Helen Adler yelled. "Mine spent $160,000, Eleanor Pierce countered. Margaret Cole, the judge's wife, simply said with quiet dignity, 45 years of marriage, destroyed. They united in a collective fury against Chloe, who cowered in a chair, utterly broken. "What do you have to say to us?" Helen demanded. Chloe could barely speak. I ask for your forgiveness." "Forgiveness?" they all screamed. Margaret Cole delivered the final verdict. "We want you to disappear from this city and never come back." The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. Within a week, the headlines screamed, "Luxury prostitution ring busted in Beverly Hills." The story went national. Chloe was disowned by her family in Omaha. Her mother publicly told the press, "I no longer have a daughter." The clients lost everything: marriages, reputations, careers. The councilman resigned. The judge was forced into retirement. The surgeon lost his medical license. Ethan received full custody of Lily and dedicated himself to her recovery. She began specialized therapy, and slowly the light returned to her eyes. Mrs. Rosa became a permanent, beloved member of their new family. 3 months later, Lily was unrecognizable. She had gained weight, she laughed easily, and she played with the carefree joy of a normal child. Ethan renovated the house, filling it with bright colors and positive energy, and radically changed his work schedule to be present for his daughter. 6 months later, news trickled back that Chloe was working as a cleaner in a motel in another state, socially, emotionally, and financially destitute. Her attempt to use an innocent child as a shield for her crimes had backfired in the most spectacular way possible. A year later, on a sunny morning, Ethan and a vibrant, healthy 6-year-old Lily were planting flowers in the garden in the exact spot where she used to be locked away. Wearing a new, clean yellow dress, she looked up at her father. "Daddy, will these flowers grow to be pretty here?" "They will, my princess," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "because now this place is filled with nothing but love. And Aunt Chloe is never coming back." "Never again," he said firmly. "People who hurt children don't deserve a second chance." Lily smiled and patted the soil around the last flower. "Daddy, I know why your name is Ethan. It's because you're a hero and you protect good little girls." Ethan pulled his daughter into a fierce hug, tears of gratitude in his eyes. Justice had been served. A father's love had conquered unspeakable evil, and from the ashes of betrayal, a family had been reborn, stronger than ever. The image was a perfect symbol of their new life. Where there was once pain and neglect, colorful flowers now grew. Where there were once tears, there were now smiles. Because in the end, true love always, always wins.